I'm going to take my Snapchat selfie now. Cool. I want that book. All right, so Doreen's asked me to talk about building and growing a SaaS product. And before I kind of put this presentation together, I wanted to start with talking about what makes SaaS a little bit different than some of the other products that you're going to talk about today. So I like this quote. In a SaaS world, the product must sell itself over and over and over again. It's Mark Benioff. It was actually me in the shower this morning. But I think it's really about as far as SaaS goes. We're not a product. It's not like a toaster. You buy it and it's yours forever, whether you like it or not. We're a service. It's like getting your teeth cleaned. And if you have a really shitty experience, you're gone the next day. So this is why I say that it has to sell itself over and over and over again. So the role of product, the role of the product organization, I like to talk about 3 KPIs. I'm kind of a business and dollars focused guy, but total addressable market, how do we make sure the product gives us the biggest TAM possible? Gross retention, how do we make sure our customers, once they buy, they stay? And net retention, how do we hopefully, once they buy, they pay us more and more over time? So those are my KPIs. Those are my KPIs for product as a whole. But I want to talk about the beginnings of Vidyard and kind of how we've built to where we are today. So Vidyard, we're building video for everyone. I'm the CTO. Thank you, Doreen, for the introduction. We did Y Combinator summer 2011. It was a lot of fun. After that, we raised a little bit of money. We raised some more and raised some more and raised some more. We've raised about $70 million today. And we're 150 people out in Kitchener-Waterloo. And as I said, we're building video for everyone. But today, we're really video for some. And we'll talk about some of that journey. So Paul Graham likes to talk about the process. I call this the startup roller coaster. I'm sure this is old news. A lot of you guys have seen this. But it's the roller coaster of a startup. It starts with your TechCrunch launch, and then all of a sudden nobody cares shortly after. Hopefully, maybe your product hunt launch instead. I know a lot of people are doing that more and more these days, and this is why you're all in the room. Then there's the Trough of Sorrow. I'm going to talk mostly about the Trough of Sorrow today. It's okay, though. Releases of improvement, wiggles of hope, the promised land. I don't know anything about this. I'm not going to talk about it. You can ask Satish about it after me, because Shopify knows more about that than we do. Acquisition of liquidity, I guess that's what they're doing, and upside of buyer. So, as I said, I want to talk about the Trough of Sorrow. Sounds like a really crappy place, but I think that's where product shines and where you learn a hell of a lot about your business and what you're trying to do. So we started at YC, Paul Graham. I went for my first walk with Paul Graham around the little cul-de-sac in front of the old YC building. And he said, oh, you guys are YouTube for business. And so that was interesting. It was video hosting. It was free or freemium. And there was no ads. And that was what was different about Vidyard versus YouTube. That was an interesting business. That's what we started. That's what we launched as. That was the story. But we learned pretty quickly. It's kind of a race to the bottom. YouTube's already free. Everybody knows what YouTube is. There's no brand identity for Vidyard compared to YouTube. And yeah, it's really hard to compete with free. So that was a tough learning, but ultimately it got us started, and we realized we had to evolve. So next we were video analytics. Really snazzy. Better tracking of videos. Everyone's producing video. How do we find out if they're getting value out of it? Analytics is an interesting word, and I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs about analytics for analytics' sake. We had an interesting kind of moment in the early days of Vidyard. Analytics went down, and they went down for 6 weeks, which is a long time when you're video analytics. And nobody cared. Nobody emailed ever. We had customers. We really did, I promise. We had a lot of customers. And their video analytics were nothing. And so that was a really good learning experience of holy shit, maybe we shouldn't say we're video analytics. There's something there, people pay for it, so it must be something, but we weren't doing a good job of it. So we had to evolve again. And I like to say we evolved into getting the most out of video, and we'll kind of refine that from there. But it really was a realization that data alone is not enough. Analytics for analytics' sake don't get the job done. Businesses need insights. They need to know what that data tells them and what they should do about it. ROI data. So we started thinking about ROI. People pay a lot of money to make videos. It's not Snapchat video for every business. It's high production value stuff. I've seen people pay millions of dollars, which is crazy for video production. So we want to make sure we get value out of it. And it has to be connected to our daily workflow. You're a user, you're a consumer of video. How do we make that really, really easy for a salesperson, for a marketer, et cetera? So that was a brief glimpse of the Trough of Sorrow. That was a 3-year Trough of Sorrow. It was a really long time. But we finally kind of got this wiggles of hope. The guys locally at Omer's were, foolhardy enough to give us a little bit more money with our Series A. Thank you, Omer's. And we started to see these wiggles with this getting the most out of video ROI story. So where did we go from there? Went to enterprise. This is not the enterprise community, I know that. But we did sexy stuff like groups, roles, permissions, feature toggles, and integration expansion. So we took what we were doing and we just did it everywhere, which was cool. And in fact, that's where the value really came. We had a little bit of early wiggles of hope, and we just doubled down and doubled down and doubled down, which was fun. And then it got to TAM expansion. As I said, that's a big KPI for me. But how do we take what we were originally doing and do it across different parts of the business? So we started in marketing. Marketing owns video. That's why we started there. But then we said, how do we let salespeople use that video? How do we enable internal communications? And as I said, it really has become an enterprise story for us, and it's been quite a ride. So the interesting thing with all those different steps and all those different changes along the way, eventually you realize something funny about the process. When you focus on that wiggles of hope, I apologize that label of the promised land is there, but before that, the wiggles of hope, you find the process all over again. And really every kind of little step along the way is this process over and over again. I think every day is a startup roller coaster. It's the same damn thing. But you get through it. And ultimately, I think, as I said, we're looking for the promised land, and we're working towards that. So kind of this post-enterprise product, we're really trying to get to that post-maturity, promised land, growth, hyper-growth phase. And so we started to think about this video for everyone challenge. As I said, we're very much in the enterprise today, but I want to get to that video for everyone mission. And I kind of think of Vidyard today as a ladder with no rungs at the bottom. It's really, really great. Once you're on it, you can grow and you can climb and you can get a ton of value. We serve a lot of really, really big organizations. But without those rungs at the bottom, it's hard to get people started. It's hard to kind of drive that pipeline from the earliest days. So I actually looked at the Cloud 100, which is an award they use for the 100 fastest growing and most valuable private cloud companies. And these are the top 3. And in fact, the top 10 have all the same thing in common, which is really, really interesting. And that is they start with bottoms up, right? I imagine many of you who started using Slack, it's probably like one person installed it at your company and was like, oh, I'm going to use this thing. And then it becomes viral. I know at Vidyard, it got into the engineering team, and then overnight, everyone used it. Then we had to pay later. Same thing with Dropbox, same thing with DocuSign. It's just really, really easy to get started. So we call this the flywheel. It's what makes this process kind of go round and round and round. It's that model of bringing customers in with little to no barrier, hooking them with some value, and then growing organization-wide. And as I said, we've done a ton of work to be ready for organization-wide, but getting them started and putting those rungs on the ladder is a lot of fun. So I'm excited to talk about something new. It's called Viewed It. That's all I have to say about that today, though. Cool. So I'm gonna finish it off there, but I think my only call to action for you guys is we will be doing that TechCrunch launch. In fact, it's going to be primarily a product hunt launch. Doreen is very, very involved, so watch for that. It's coming soon. Otherwise, get in touch with me if you have any questions. You want to talk SaaS. Happy to chat. That's it. Thank you, everybody. Yeah.
So knowing what you know now, and if you were to do it over again, is there a way to make the trough of sorrow go away or less painful? Or would you do Vidyard again?
I think for the most part, we've made the right steps along the way. Again, I think, I don't know if I have a magic bullet. I think every company is a little bit different. It's a lot. One thing I've learned, again, looking at this flywheel, a lot of companies start there and build up. It seems, maybe it's just me thinking the grass is always greener on the other side, but that seems to work. And a lot of these demos have showed really early value really, really quickly. Vidyard, really, when we started getting some traction, it was always at the highest end of the market. And coming back down is, as I said, a pretty fresh start and a pretty big directional change. So I might have started, maybe my next startup, I'll start bottom up. But I think we made the right decision along the way. So who knows?
Hey, I might be crazy, but I still don't have a clear idea of what you guys do. Do you think you just go over that quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. We do stuff for enterprises. You didn't get that? It's not for you. Okay, so what does Vidyard do? We help our mission statement. I'll hit you with the mission statement. We help organizations grow through the use of online video. So it's basically, as a marketer, I want to put my video online. I want to see who watched it, and I want to follow up with them effectively. That's the overall use case. And then when you get into sales, if I'm a salesperson, I want to send some video. I wanted to communicate with video more effectively, especially within a business context. So integration to CRMs, into marketing automation platforms, that kind of stuff. Carell?
So my question is around timing. How do you know, starting out from the approach of the enterprise level, and you sort of touched on this before, how do you know when to go into integration expansion and to go into all this stuff?
Literally every single step I talked about was driven by customers. And I imagine, especially in the early stages of startup, you follow the money, and we follow the money. If a customer is willing to pay us for something, we did it. Eventually you get to the point where you can be more strategic, and we're there now. But I think that bar just kind of raises. At the very earliest days, if someone offers you $1 to do something and everything you did was free before, you'll do that. And then that bar raises, and eventually it's got to be $10 before you're going to do something. And of course, that just goes and goes and goes. But strategically speaking, I think you just follow the money. Especially in a business world. I think, I'll preface that with saying this is like SaaS B2B that I'm talking about, not necessarily other things.
Over here?
Yeah.
Hi. How often do you get feature requests, and how often do you implement such features that are relevant for one specific customer, like one big customer, but for others are irrelevant?
So the question was, how do you balance features for one versus the many?
Yes, how often do you get such requests, and how often do you actually implement them? Because you may say nobody else uses it.
So you get a lot of feature requests, and I think that's the difference between a services company and a platform or a SaaS product is do we just follow the customers versus do we do what we think is strategically right? And I think there's a balance. As I said, in the earliest of days, you follow the money. But as it kind of goes, we definitely have listened to customers without that being the only thing we do. Sales cycle, good question. So we have a traditional inside sales model as well as an enterprise key accounts model. So starts with sales development, business development folks reaching out to customers, talking to them about their video library, talking about how they get value out of video today. As someone is interested in going to the next step or interested in learning more about how we might be able to help them, it turns over to account executive, and they do some demos and present them with a proposal on price point and what it would take to do, and away we go.
Over here. Hey.
Yeah.
Vidyard's famously known for being in the KW region. Do you happen to know anything about moving to the downtown core by any chance?
The downtown core of Toronto. We are very passionately Kitchener-Waterloo, for sure. But I think, the one thing we found as we've scaled is that there is, I think there's value in being in a variety of places. I can't say specifically that Toronto will be first, but I think, we're kind of at the stage now where it's starting to make sense to look elsewhere. Toronto may or may not be first. We don't have specific plans yet.